Maybe.
Speaking of talking, it is time, everybody, for apparently the last panel of JordanCon, other than the closing ceremony. So that's really sad, but also really exciting that we had another fantabulous JordanCon marred only with an early morning fire alarm. So, we'll do this like we did last time. If you were here, like 1 hour ago, an hour and a half ago, we will introduce ourselves in case you don't know who we are. We will give you our credentials, so hopefully you'll respect us just like slightly more, you know. And even though we don't have any inside deets, we're gonna do our best to speculate about what is going to happen in season 3 of the Wheel of Time, with all the information that we have about season 2, which could be more. So it should be a fun panel. But let's establish spoiler levels. Last panel we went up through book 4. You want to give us ourselves a little cushion and say book 5?
Sure.
I think that's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Spoiler alerts. If you haven't read all the way through book 5, you're at risk here. So just know that. Okay.
Now.
Beware. Beware. Okay. Let's introduce ourselves. Allie, why don't you start?
Oh, okay. I'm Allie. I'm one half of Wheel Takes podcast. We're a first-time reader podcast on Winter's Heart, which is book 9.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. I'm also the creator of the Brinwell Cup on Twitter. Thank you. And that is a March Madness bracket that we do every year where we definitively, objectively rank the hottest character in the Wheel of Time. And then the winner ascends to the Heroes of the Horny, and they're eligible for future years. And we continue on like that. And it's one of my favorite things. And then in addition to that, I am a screenwriter and playwright, and I work in development in TV and film. That's it.
I'm Gus. I'm the other half of Wheel Takes podcast. I am the fully spoiled half of that First Time Reader podcast. I am also an actor in Los Angeles. I have also written and directed, so I have some knowledge of some things relating to the industry. And that's me.
Amazing, Jen.
I am Jen. I am on Talkaranria, the Wheel of Time showcast. We are a show-related podcast where we talk about how the books will be adapted into the show. And this is my co-host, Tom.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Tom Koza. I'm also on Talkaranria. And we are really excited to be here. So hopefully you are too.
Awesome. I'm CritterXD. I do Wheel of Time and other fantasy TikToks. I'm on YouTube. I have a Discord that you can join if you wanted. I'm at Gwen Alvear on Twitter and on Instagram. So I just talk about Wheel of Time all the time. And I think that's probably true for a lot of us. So that being said, I think since we have industry expert in the room with us, we're going to get started with a brief explanation of kind of what goes into the writing of a season and an episode. So if you want to take it away, Allie.
Yeah, so everything has a structure that's established. Obviously, not everyone uses the structure and they can still make great stuff, but it's how I like to think about things, because then you're not looking at the blank page and thinking, okay, where do I start? And just create, and you can kind of fill in some blanks and make it interesting. So season 3 typically is kind of your story turn season. So we've gotten past the inciting incident, we've seen some obstacles along the way, and now we're learning new information or encountering new, like, bigger obstacles that are making us go, oh god, it's even worse or more intense than I thought. So when we're thinking about season 3, we kind of want to think about it in those terms. What are kind of the things that are going to, and apparently this is my favorite thing to say on the planet, raise the stakes even further, so that we're feeling we're getting toward that kind of like midpoint moment where it's going to feel very climactic and big and huge, and then kind of create that mini climax. So the way season structure works is episode 1 is going to be an inciting incident episode. We're going to figure out why we're here, what's our season question, what are we trying to do, what is the goal that we have. Episode 2 is our obstacles and point of no return. We can't go back to where we were before because things have ramped up to a certain point and whoops, we're on the journey already. Episode 3, and stop me if this is super boring, but I like it, is the story turn episode. We learn new things that are going to make things worse. Episode 4 is our midpoint, so it's like a mini climax to get us through that mid-season slog.
You might call it like a raging sun.
You might call it like a raging sun. Which I said, I was like, keep your eye on episode 4, it's going to be a big one, and look what happened. And anyway, so structure. Episode 5 is usually going to be your story turn / bad guys close in episode. Things are like starting to look kind of bad. Episode 6 is your low point, so we're the farthest away from whatever our goal is. It looks like all might be lost. Episode 7 is your climax. And episode 8 is your resolution / add hooks to get us interested in the next season. So that we're excited to watch it when we premiere. So that's kind of how it works overall. And I think that's a good place to start when it comes to like what we think might go where.
And that's all a very general, like these are huge boxes to put things in.
Huge
so
boxes.
We're not saying every show is exactly the same and follows this precise route.
And you must do it or you're not a writer. No. It's just a nice way to kind of like compartmentalize, okay, this is like kind of what we're going to try to be doing, because we've been telling stories the same way from like time immemorial. Take it up with Aristotle if you have an issue. But you know, we, all of us, know stories in our bones at this point, and so we're expecting certain things to happen in certain places. So a lot of times, if you don't include some of those things, it can feel like a little bit of a letdown because your body was ready for it, you know? So anyway,
yeah,
take
absolutely.
it away.
All that being said, we have heard that season 3 is going to be a lot of book 4. We're looking at book 4 for season 3, and when we were looking at, you know, okay, what happens in book 4, it turns out it's an unbelievable amount of stuff. So there's 4 main arcs that we've kind of established. We've got the Two Rivers Heron battle arc thing. We've got the girls in Tanchico. We've got Rudy and the Ale Waste, Rand's hero's journey there, and which one am I forgetting? The tower. Oh yeah, the tower.
That little place.
Yeah, and so that is so much to go into one season. So the biggest question is it all going into this season? Are we going to lose some stuff? Jen, you suggested that there might be some of the tower plot leaking into season 2. Do you think that's going to be one of their solutions?
I think so. I mean, unless we're only getting like Nynaeve and Egwene and Elaine, I think that we need to kind of see the other Aes Sedai and what they're doing, you know, a little bit about Leandrin. I don't know if we're getting Elida in season 2 or if she's just being introduced in season 3, which feels weird to me that she would just pop up out of nowhere, especially when she has so much of a relation to Elaine and that family. But I think that's something that we could kind of start to see, at least start to see like seeds getting sown in season 2 for that.
Sure. So Gus, all that being said, what's the inciting incident in episode 1?
Season 3?
Yeah.
Of which plot?
Exactly. What do you think they'll put first? What do you think is going to be? What did you call it, Allie? Arc A or plot A?
Oh, the A-plot.
A-plot. What's going to be the A-plot in the season?
Well, okay, so I was thinking about what the season question is going to be, because I was like, how do you unite so many disparate plots and make them all feel like they make sense together? Because that's really important in a TV show, is that they all kind of feel like, okay, we're unified. But I ended up with, how are we going to unite so many different people? Mm-hmm. Is it possible? And I think that the Battle of the Two Rivers is going to tell us yes, and then Cold Rock's Hold is going to tell us no.
Okay.
So I think it's going to, the answer to that question is going to be, it's complicated, and will continue to be complicated. But inciting incident-wise, I think go to Roydian.
Yeah, I think if we see Rand, I'm assuming, my guess is that Rand ends up in Tyr at the end of season 2. I know we have differing opinions on that. But my guess is that Rand realizes he needs protection. He himself being able to blow stuff up with his brain is cool, but he can still get stabbed in his sleep.
Yeah.
So he needs protection. He's got these cool spear ladies and possibly spear guys with him. Let's see if we can find some more of those, as in the book.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think my theory is that, going in the doors is the inciting incident of the season, because that is going to be, the inciting incident is the thing that's going to get everyone in their marching places, and I think that will happen for Rand, Matt, Moraine, Egwene. I mean, think about who gets marching orders just from that alone.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a big one. And then you have, at the same time, Nynaeve and Elaine and Tom, if he's there, going to on their quest. What? Why are you looking funny?
I think he'll show up eventually, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think if he's gonna show up, I think season 3 is a good place for him to show up.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna show up. Honestly,
Rafe posted on Wednesday that slow pan of the like the call sheet basically for season 3, and some geniuses managed to take a 1/4 inch of a forehead on a picture that was below what we posted and went, yeah, that's Tom.
Y'all are so beautifully handled. I love that. But yeah, so I'm sure that the staff is just
She's right here.
sweating constantly.
That's
Gorgeous. I love it. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a big place that the marching orders come from, and the inciting incident is kind of your marching orders moment. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, that's
What do you think?
I like it. I think people will be invested in the Two Rivers for sure. We've seen a lot go on there, and how sad will it be if after we saw it get completely wrecked, we just get to see it get completely wrecked again? So hopefully it softens the blow in some way. Anyways, so Tom, what do you think? What are you most looking forward to seeing in season 3?
Well, I think that's it. I think that season 3 is going to be your first season where it doesn't end with a win across the board, right? In that regard, but you are going to get the win there, and I think that to kind of echo some of the points that you brought up about raising the stakes and getting things darker or whatever. I think the show will play off the fact that hey, there's Forsaken here and it's not a victory, and there's not Forsaken here and there is a victory.
Yeah.
And upping just the presence of them is so disruptive that it causes disunity and it causes chaos. But yeah, I think that the Battle of Two Rivers is going to be, I really hope, very, very good. And I think, on a selfish, or a personal note, what they do in the first episode, while it's understandable with Perrin, has never sat right with me. And I think that his character really suffers for it. And I understand why they did it, and I understand all the reasons for it. I'm not saying they're wrong or anything. I'm saying, for me, and I think that this is the point. I don't think you're going to even get it necessarily in season 2. This is the point that you're going to get a fully realized Perrin on the screen.
So then, when do you think we meet Fael?
I think season 3.
I think top of season 3.
Yeah.
Well, we could just make a comment about something that we heard at New York Comic Con. Joe had asked Marcus a question about something about having room in your life for a new relationship, and Marcus looked absolutely dumbfounded, and Rafe said, "Oh, he doesn't know what you're talking about yet." So as if, and I said, "There's no way that Fael is in the show. He doesn't understand that that's a love interest for him, so we think Fael will be definitely not in season 2.
No.
Fair enough. So you mentioned the Forsaken. There's a couple centerpiece Forsaken in book 4 that might show up in season 3. We're talking Asmodean, perhaps. Gus, how do you feel about it? Are we getting more Forsaken?
I hope so. I just like them so much, and I like what they look like they're going to be doing in the show. Just from the outset with what we saw. Yeah, I can talk about it. What we saw Shamael doing and how much more deft he was, in my opinion, than here my eyes are fire, here's a rat that's dead, get on my team or die. I just really want to see what they can do with Asmodean in particular. He's already so clever in the books. How far can we push that?
Honestly, thinking about all the plots, I'm trying to be what do I want? The main plot. What do I want to get the most airtime? And Tenchico, unfortunately, is in last place for me. But then you're thinking about it, the White Tower is so epic. And if we get something from Swan's perspective, how devastating. It's going to be brutal. The Two Rivers is going to be absolutely insane. And if Perrin's family has the same situation as it did in the book, that's going to be just terrible and awesome to watch. You know, we love the drama, and then I love the ideal. I love the waste, and so it's kind of just I'm just worried more than anything else that there's not enough time to cover all the awesome crap that happens.
It's an embarrassment of riches.
It is, yeah. And so the question is, are we going to push things around and not get everything in season 3?
I think we have to find ways to hit the important moments and beats. We may have to get creative about the ways in which they happen, just due to the limited amount of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think there's a world in which, you know, like Rand could take care of the Stone of Tyr plot, and you could have the Falma plot be happening simultaneously, because the only concern that I have is the repeat beat of fighting Ishamael twice.
Sure.
And I think there's a way to, I mean, I don't know if it goes Tyr or not, or if they consolidate it and do Falma, or that they do Tyr later, but I do think there's a way to consolidate potentially the Ishamael battles of it all. I think that may be a place that there'll be some consolidation happening.
Okay.
A little bit.
That makes sense. You guys have any ideas about how they're going to manage this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think you are. You're going to condense things down. You're going to limit. I do think that there is a lot in book 4 about the entire, like, almost as if you were reading a social studies book about the IO, where you get everything about their culture, and this is their agriculture, and this is like how their families are structured. And I don't think you're going to get that level of detail. And I think you're going to see, like, here's a hold, okay, and now they're going to go to Rordian. And, like, not that it's like 5 minutes, so I'm going to be wrong, but you're not going to, like, they're going to show more than tell in that regard, and I think that can be condensed. And I think that as much as I want to see the Two River storyline, that's going to be condensed as well. I think that there's a lot of Perrin, like, fighting why he's there and what he's doing, and I think that there's an opportunity in season 2, right, not to get too much into this, but season 2, he's the one who's with the Shienarans, hunting the Horde. There's a possibility that he's going to get that Rand piece of that, and they're going to be calling him Lord Perrin in that. And so he's going to be more comfortable with leadership and not have to struggle with that, and it's really just more about dealing with the issue. And I think that's a way that you can accelerate that plot line without losing the essential pieces of it. I don't know. Like, I'm looking over there and see if I'm completely off base.
I'm sorry, I'm like staring at you. I'm just like engaged in what you're saying.
Right.
I know I'm really scary eyeballs sometimes. I'm just really blue. I think you're definitely spot on. I think you said something really important that I was kind of thinking about while I was looking at you. In addition, where we're talking about TV, and by necessity, things are going to be more show than tell, always in TV, because books are largely tell. So a lot of the words can be condensed into a moment, which is a nice kind of advantage to screenwriting over writing a book, is you can just kind of like, a lot can be set off of a look, a lot can be set off of a movement. And a lot can be done with actors' ability to portray information. So I think that's definitely going to be ways in which we can move things along at a satisfying pace while still getting the important information that we need to. They're not going to set us up for failure by not giving us info when we need it.
I think one good way to get some stuff communicated to us is how Rand gets it communicated to him in the book, and that's through Avienda. So on the last panel, we talked about how Season 2 is probably going to be kind of a Rand min as far as like Rand and his relationships go season, and so I'm curious if we're going to have a Rand Avienda season in Season 3, or how that all is going to play out. Gus, you have any thoughts about that?
I think to establish that relationship in time for certain things to happen in the snow, we need to do that. Not that things will happen in the snow, but they could. It's a great scene. I struggle to figure out how Avienda gets there, because I think she's, I don't know. But I do think that we have to start establishing that now. We didn't get Elaine in Season 1, and I understand why. And if we're getting a lot of Min in Season 2 and a lot of Avienda in Season 3, then we're set up for Elaine in Season 4, and then we can go from there, right?
Assuming they do it the same way.
Assuming they do it.
Yeah. Assuming they do it.
Do it.
Sorry, that was dumb.
You met us.
True.
I'm dying for her to threaten him with the spear. I feel like that's the best meet cute of all time. But, oh yeah, question.
One thing you mentioned about the Battle of Two Rivers being condensed, does it even need to be all in one season, or could they start the storyline in season 3 and continue it into season 4?
I don't think that they are going to do that because I think Rafe said like his vision or his pitch was 8 seasons.
No.
Right? So like my thinking is that like they're gonna try and do 5 and then parts of 6 in season 4. Right? Like they don't have time.
I think the other thing you have to be aware of always as a writer is the contract you're accidentally making with your audience. So there's a difference, right, between a cliffhanger and a hook. A hook is like, but a cliffhanger is something that can be answered in a yes or no question. So like, do they win the battle, yes or no? And that's a cliffhanger, and that frustrates people. They get angry because you're not solving the contract that you initially provided, which is we will give you an answer, right? Or in a rom-com, they will fall in love. If you don't have them fall in love, people get angry. But with a hook, it's something that presents itself that can be a lot of different questions. So by providing the Shan-Chan at the end of season 1, we don't know who they are, we don't know what their motives are. That introduces a lot of new and exciting questions versus a cliffhanger that does tend to frustrate people. We're just trying to avoid people tweeting.
Another thing, if I can interview, another thing about fitting everything into one season with book 4, the way I like to think of it is that if we assume 8 episodes of 60, maybe 65 minutes if we're lucky, we're just under 9 hours of footage, which is a little bit less than 3 Lord of the Rings movies, theatrical edition. And if I consider what happens in the entirety of Lord of the Rings, and I consider what happens that we have to see in the entirety of The Shadow Rising, it's about the same. So I do think there's room for us to get all of the climactic events and all of the big things, all the setup in a satisfying way. We just might be looking at a back half of the season with a ton of action in it, which I'm not going to complain about.
Totally fine. We got a question, Gray?
What do you think they will do with the whole Slayer, Lord Luke thing? Do you think they'll push it back to or cut it out?
Go ahead, Tom.
Thanks.
I don't love the Slayer plot at all. I don't know.
I think that is a potential cut. I don't know. I will say this. Every time that I've said, like, oh, the show's gonna cut this, and then like Grace's like, no, we're not cutting that. That's like important. And so maybe I'm wrong, and I do think that Slayer clearly plays a role in the books, but like I don't know if that is something that, if you have Pat and Fane there, I don't know if you need another villain.
I think it depends on how much Talyr and Riyadh is going to be important in the season and in the show overall. And granted, I don't know where Slayer goes, so I think there's a world in which it could be there. There's a world in which it could be pushed back, and there's a world in which it could be cut. But I think if they're going to make Talyr and Riyadh a big central focus, which they might, because Egwene is going to be exploring a lot of Talyr and Riyadh at the time, so they might also want Perrin in there as well. That could be a world in which Slayer might become vitally important, because it could be a nice expression of the dangers of Talyr and Riyadh but they might not necessarily get into the Lord Luke of it all.
I also think that if Slayer's going to be a part of, and I'll be very, very vague, if Slayer's going to be a part of the Battle of the Two Rivers, Slayer's going to have a lot more to do with Perrin throughout the remaining books than he necessarily does. Because,
Spoiler.
I'm not going to say anything specifically, but they are set up as a really fascinating antagonistic duo, in my opinion, in Book 4. Whether or not that gets a ton of payoff later is up to interpretation.
Yeah, I think that a certain way to just get rid of Slayer, because again, not super invested, the Forsaken are around, and they're all over Teleron Riyadh. So let them be the antagonists in the world of dreams, and the danger being expressed through them makes a ton of sense. And then we don't have to worry about whether it ever made sense to have Slayer in the series.
No, we don't gotta pay for another actor.
Right.
Or two.
Or two.
Right. Okay, so we haven't talked a ton about the Tower Coup other than the fact that it might kind of bleed into season 2, especially because we're conveniently in the tower. But I am so excited to see that, and I feel like Rafe loves the tower, so he's going to want to focus on it at some point, whether it's season 2 or season 3. How do we think that's going to fit in to the season itself, right? Like, maybe not at the beginning, because you're thinking Ruidion. Is it, you know, does it explode as the season finale? What Jen, do you have thoughts?
I don't know. That could be like a good mid-season incident. You're trying to use the correct vernacular. You know, especially if you want to save like the bigger battles for the end. I think that's something that could really be like a holy shit moment of what do we do now? Like they don't, and everybody else just has no idea what's happening, and then the whole tower's like in flames basically. So I think that could be a good like episode 4 storyline.
Cool. So what's the finale, or what's episode 7? What's the crazy, OMG, this is amazing, Allie, have you thought this one out?
Battle of the Two Rivers.
Battle of the Two Rivers.
Yeah,
season
because low
7.
point's got to be the day before, where they're all like, "We're gonna die." That's the "we're gonna die" episode for sure.
So then would El Caradal be the episode 8?
Heck yeah. Because think about it, we're like, oh yeah, we can unite everybody. We can come together when push comes to shove. When the chips are down, the women are fighting, the kids are fighting, everyone's fighting to save humanity, right? And then, oh, we're gonna actually like split everybody up even further.
Mm-hmm.
I think is a fun kind of continuation of that theme of like, yeah, people will work together, but sometimes they'll also act in their own best interests. And sometimes, you know, getting everybody united is gonna hurt. It's not always going to be fun.
Mm-hmm. So do we think the, and again, we're being real careful with spoilers here, but do we think the Shido are going to be as prevalent in the series as they are in the books? Anybody have thoughts on that one?
I think so. I think we are going to get like Cooladin in this season. I think I don't know if they'll be like as big and continue for as long, but I think for this season it would be good to have him be like a threat to Rand.
And they're going to make him hot.
Have they ever made anyone not hot? Literally every person on the show is hot.
And
It's
they're
really
really somehow empathetic, and I'm going to hate it. You know,
I think it's important to have a lot of citizens of the Westlands be in terror of the IU, right? And so I think you need to have the Shado out there, and I think that to the point where I think that they may rush. That might be something from book 5. That like that's the end of the season. Is they're already over the wall, and like he has to go chase them.
because it's a really great
Yeah.
for the next season.
Right?
Just the little girls watching the Shido.
I want that little girl like every nature of
She somehow survives everything. She's just on the wrong place at the wrong time.
She's contractually not allowed to age. She's at every event.
Yeah, I think the Shido might be more important for a shorter time, is all I'll say.
Yeah.
We've got a question, blonde back there.
This person up here by the wall is her hand over me of confidence.
Oh, sorry, Sulan, I didn't see you.
Okay.
What's up?
So generous.
Do you think it's realistic to have Perrin meet Bail and then marry her 7 episodes later?
That may be
Especially
a
because
shift.
To repeat the question, is it realistic for Perrin to meet Fael and marry her in the same season? I think no.
That may be a shift. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be one of those things where I think there'll be a shift there of what that. I think they could. Yes.
And then they kiss.
could kiss, and you know that could be. I mean, because that could be. Because a wedding is a big moment, but kissing a gal after trauma is also a very big moment. And you know, I do think they have to have some kind of reckoning of like we feel things, but maybe it's not. But I don't think wedding is that's a very fast wedding, very fast. That's a Kim Kardashian fast.
Well, also, like, when you think about it, the last time the Two Rivers folks saw Perrin, we all know what happened, right? And so if he comes back and literally the next time they see him, he's like, P.S. plan me a wedding. You know, they'll be like, Fail, are you okay with that? Like, I don't know.
You know what happened in the last one, right?
Exactly, yeah, like, this feels strange.
Question about the tower plot line. Whose eyes do you think we're going to get that through, right? Because none of our main characters are going to be there, and it looks like it happens off screen, really. So obviously, Ray's probably going to spend more time there, but like, who do you think like the eyes to die on each side are going to be that they're going to be kind of telling that story through?
I want Swan, but like, because then you could be as surprised as she is. You know what I mean? Like, she knows that people are whispering behind her back, but it's not to the extent that it is. And so if the show conceals, and I don't know how this works, but if it's like kind of a secret, even to us, that stuff is happening, and then like it just drops on us, like, and we're experiencing it as she's experiencing it, that could be so dramatic, and I would love it. Plus, Sophie Okonedo's a legend, so like seeing her going through it would be my dream. So, what do you guys think?
I mean, yeah, we've already gotten hints, right? If there is turmoil, there is strife, there are factions, people do not necessarily get along. And to your point about season 2 hinting at some of this, I think if we drop enough breadcrumbs in the first 2 seasons, it's possible to basically see one more instance of that in season 4, and then all of a sudden kick the door down, tear the shawl off.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, if we, I think seeds have already been planted, right, in season 1, that we're already seeing the seeds start to plant, so we don't need to do much more than what's already been planted. And in fact, the less we talk about it from here on out, probably the better.
Yeah.
Like we just, the breadcrumbs are there, let them
Swan and Maury talked it up so much in the what do we call it? The FFH?
Yeah.
That if anything goes wrong, we're done, we're screwed. Bad.
Yeah. Oh wait, should we go back to the generous blonde?
Oh no, that's the only reason why I had my hand up.
Oh great, so all went well.
I was wondering, to that extent, how much do you think, if at all, Min's visions could play in like putting the breadcrumbs in for the tower?
We haven't really talked about that at all.
Yeah,
So the question was how much effect might Min's visions have on the tower plotline in the show?
Did you?
I actually, this is a question that I have that actually, if we had time, I was going to throw out to you guys. Where is Min at the beginning, and how does she get to presumably this storyline if that's where she ends up? Because I can see, okay, they're all in Falm, or they're all in Tyr, or wherever they are, and there's a doorway, and there's news, and like, okay, we gotta go. But like, who's gonna go? Like, you, lady, just go to the tower. Like, I don't understand. But that's I don't know. I don't know if she's there or where she is.
Oh, I want her to be there though. Like, that's my favorite Min arc, I think. Like, a lot of the time I could give or take Min being anywhere. No offense, like, we have our characters we like, we have our characters we don't really care that much about. But during the tower coup, that's Min's strongest time, I think. And so like, if we lose out on that part, I'll be kind of bummed.
So the character made a point of mentioning, which is not true in the book, that she's from Tarvalin, and we see her get on a wagon and leave, and I'm like, why not go home? Why not be like, screw you guys, I'm going home.
But then what's her season 2 story?
And that's a big question, right? And
Yeah. Someone in the audience just pointed out that her aunts have been cast in season 2.
Yeah.
Family of hers is
Yeah.
in season 2.
I was saying.
Maybe she's our window.
Maybe she's with Matt in season 2.
Could be too, because I mean, Matt's not. Matt's having a time. I feel like he's got to be hanging out too with Galad and Gollum, because I do think that quarterstaff battle's gonna happen. I do. I think that something is happening, and I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Min could stay in the tower in season 2 when everybody else leaves, and then be the POV that we can continue to see tower things happening as you go forward.
Because why would she?
And then Swan, Swan just picks her up and doesn't let her go.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry. If I'm Swan and I know that there's a gal around who can see things, and she said that she was kind of ran out of the last place that she was in because that people knew she could see things. So I would be like, "Hi, I'm going to point you at literally everyone, and you're just going to tell me what their vibe check is."
I'm just so confused about how Elaine and Min, I know Min met Rand, but how are these relationships going to get initiated? Because everyone's just so separate from each other. That's like a hard, I can't really wrap my head around.
Sure, go ahead.
I have a question about Tanchiko. My favourite thing there is tea time already. How are we going to make compulsion work on screen when it can't be explained in text?
That's the question is, how are we going to make compulsion work on screen? Because we get it explained to us in the text. So I think there are some pieces of media that have a similar effect. Like, for example, in Harry Potter, they manipulate each other, and they have like a visual where they like it's like they smell something, and then they kind of like glaze over. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it might be sort of a glazy effect where you can kind of see them space out, their eyes change. I think there are ways to do visual cues to make it work. Just change their demeanor enough that there's something wrong.
Especially if there's a weave, because we always see the weaves. If we see a tendril poke your forehead, and all of a sudden your eyes unfocus and you're really pliant, something's going on.
Yeah, acting is going to do a lot for that as well. Acting is going to do a lot of work.
I feel like they could do a very slight music cue.
Oh,
Something very in the background, you don't even realize, you're like, oh wait, that's
definitely
ticking me off. That's something
like the whistle.
Yeah, like the whistling, you don't even realize you heard it until it's like, oh wait, that keeps coming up again.
Right. Sure, glasses?
I'm curious about, in season 1 we got just step-in episodes. We got stuff that wasn't in the books. And you all talked about how much of it is in the books that it's going to be hard to, we're going to try and cram it all in. Is there anything that isn't in the books that you're thinking they're going to do a step-in-like episode?
I think we need the fact that, I think we all think that you're going to see the tower. You're going to see what happens to Swan. That's not going to be something that is off screen. That was crazy. I think that'll be your sit-in episode in that regard. I don't think you're gonna. There's not as much need, I think, by the time you get to season 3, to do an episode to explain part of the culture and the world that is done through lots of small pieces over many, many books. All right, maybe you do something like that with the Aiel. Maybe there's an Aiel episode too that's our storyline that's exclusive to that. But yeah, my first thought is that you're something that's not in the books that you'll see definitively on screen.
I think also there's a strong chance that the Tanchiko plot might kind of become or get morphed in some way so that we're not doing 2 side quests with the same girl characters, right? Because they go off and they're looking for things in 2 different books in 2 different ways, and some people like it, some people don't, but it does feel semi-repetitive if you think about it from a certain altitude. And so, are we hunting the Black Aja? Are we looking for something? I can't remember what book that's in, so I won't say the word. If we're looking for something else that'll help with the whatever, or is it some other reason for the girls to be on this quest, right? Maybe it's not either of those things. Maybe it's something they invent to kind of just give them something that's important to do while everyone else is literally blowing the world up.
This is a question I was going to raise anyway. Do you guys think Morghese is going to be on the show? Could they go to Cambridge?
That's not a theory.
We've thought about this. I don't remember where we came down.
I think she's there. I think she dies early. I think she dies early, and I think it could be nebulous as to whether or not Rand or whoever killed her. I think there's a way to do that where it could be nebulous, because that could fuel Gawain more. But in terms of what I want to see happen, I want to see Gal has become a white cloak, like that decision-making process without recruiting. I think as the white cloaks have become such a big presence in the show, we may see it.
Yeah, we haven't even brought up like white cloaks in this season at all. Like, is that they're such a big part of the first 2 seasons? Like to just disappear would be
too
rare.
Yeah.
Forget it. I know the books, guys. Don't worry about it. I swear I've read them.
I know you've been waiting for a
Forget
while.
it. I blacked out.
In the video that you saw, there was Raymond mentioned that he was surprised that we don't focus on some of the things that he thought was really important, like the activity of the girls in the past. So do you think that the kind of the 4 choices that you come up with are in line with his mentality, or do you think he's thinking about it?
I think that specifically, from what I gathered, that was aimed at season 2. So I think we're going to get more of maybe a Gwen and Elaine and Nynaeve in the tower than we were in, we're all kind of breezing past like oh yeah, that's going to happen right before all the cool stuff happens, right? And so I think maybe he's going to want to simmer in it for longer than we're expecting. I'm not sure about the next. I'm certain that he's going to want to make the tower coup like a very important part of the show. And so in that respect, yeah, he's going to focus, I think, personally. I don't know, whatever you guys think.
Totally. I mean, we can only really guess because it's so interesting because everybody's what's important in the books is different to everybody. Because I was talking to somebody a while back where they were like, well, you have to have the lady in the kitchens. What's her name?
Lars.
You gotta have Lars. She's absolutely vital to the plot. And I was kind of like, wow. I mean, but that might be true to them. And there's an argument to be made, right? That she might be important, or that she could be her role could be consolidated with Min's. But I think everybody's interpretation of what's important in this book is based on your own perspective. So it's hard to. That's the hard part about adaptation, right?
And they keep surprising us with what's important. I mean, we in one of our early show episodes talking about, we said, well, come on, I would put everything I own on the fact that Amalisa's not going to be in the show. And then she's like half of episode 8. So it's going to surprise us.
Yeah, but she had a purpose.
She did.
She had a big purpose.
Have a purpose. I know you've been waiting for this.
Yeah, no worries. Well, speaking of things that we might actually see on screen that are like off page or created, Massima.
Yeah.
Is Massima going to be a part of season 3? Given that we know he was cast for season 2, is presumably Shinaran there?
Mm-hmm. Is Massima going to be a part of season 3?
Yeah. I don't know why he would be, but maybe.
I see a world in which he is. I mean, there's riots. There's riots everywhere the Wonder Girls go, and then the riots. There could be a world in which riots and Massima go together in an earlier. But I'm going to be so careful. But there's a world in which I think he could be a malevolent presence in Elaine and Nynaeve's travels.
Yeah, he could even be maybe just like kind of a cold open where we like learn some things. There are stirrings just around Randland, and then we maybe see those stirrings actively while the girls are out wherever they're going to be.
They're traveling about.
Yeah.
And he's causing his mischiefs.
Yeah.
Then there's a world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna throw something out with this. It's just that question. I never thought of this before, but you have the Shinarans there at Falm. What if they get sent along with the girls, and he's like an active and they're just like, hey, look, man, we're leaving you behind. You're a wacko.
Yeah.
And then now there's this kind of this cancerous growth out there in the world, and then they're like, wow, we handled that wrong.
Jen, I know you were talking about whether there were other characters that we haven't seen yet, if they're going to show up, another companion for the girls.
Joylin?
Yeah.
Anyone think Joylin's going to be on the show? Maybe?
I love him. No.
Tom is like the biggest wild card to me. Like how he gets caught back up in the whole story. So yeah, but Joylin I think probably is going to be cut.
Either Joylin's cut or he's the most important character.
Cut to JordanCon. 3 years from now. We were remember we said Joylin wasn't important?
Yeah.
Joylin.
He's actually my
JordanCon
favorite character.
2025.
So yeah, right. Now, yeah, sure. Go ahead.
We talked a little bit about Slayer potentially being an antagonist for Perrin, and we also talked about how Tenchiko may be the plot of book 4, but one of the best parts is Nynaeve and Mogedion, and that's the other antagonistic thing that starts in book 4. So, wondering.
Oh, that's gonna happen. There's no way that doesn't happen. And she throws a plate at her. That's funny as hell. And so her.
And really visual.
And so visual. I mean, that's the thing. If you want to think about things that are not probably going to get cut, or it will at least be like done, but maybe slightly differently, it's going to be those really visual moments. I think they're going to input as much as possible because it's like it's so easy that you just copy paste. That's the easiest stuff to adapt.
And we've all heard about Nynaeve flailing around with a sword in the season 2 trailer, which gives her a reason to think, well, I'm in a magic battle, but I could also just punch her.
That would be her instinct regardless.
Exactly. She's not magic first. She punch first. That's what she's like. But yeah, I'm thinking that's definitely like a later episode moment. So I would be looking at the like 5 through 7. Could be. All right, here's what I think. I think it could be an 8 because Al Cardal is kind of a more of a talky moment. So I'm thinking they'll want something visual and punchy for 8. So I'm thinking 8 is that, so that we have like a moment of hope before Rand ruins it. But not ruins it, like it's necessary, but like also it's a rough one. So I think there's like a high and then a, but also things still suck, just so that you can go to the next season.
Well, you heard it here first. We'll see it.
That is my theory. I'm not in the writer's room. Never know. They could be like, there's no Mogedion, and I'd be like, wow, but Goth Girls.
Sure, go ahead.
Speaking of Mogedion, I never thought I'd be asking this, but let's talk about it here. And the Chosen in general in this season, because I mean, in the book we get names and that's kind of it, and then we get to meet Asmo. How do you think the show is going to tackle the Chosen, and will we get behind the scenes of like Chosen tar meetings?
Sure, Tom, you want to go?
Sure. So I don't remember what was released publicly and what wasn't, but when we were at New York Comic Con, they did a thing where they basically went out and said that, hey, season 2 is going to have Forsaken and they're going to be disguised, right? So that's going to be established in season 2. So I do think that you're going to see like all of the Forsaken social meetings, because like those things are delicious. I don't know when there'll be and where they'll be in regards, and those might be things that they may fabricate for the show as well, because those plots are probably going to get modified. But I think that this is, I think they're going to do similar to how they do in the books, where you get 1 Forsaken, then 2 Forsaken, then a few more, and then by season 4 they're all there, right? So I think you get introduced to, you have the 2, or maybe only 1 by this point, depending on how they do the repetitive battles, right? You have Lanfear will be there, and you'll have Asmo, and you have Mogedion, and that is probably it for on-screen in season 3. And then I think by season 4, whatever number of Forsaken the show is actually going to do, I know with the statues, there's only 8, who makes it, you're okay, don't worry. But yeah, I think by season 4 you'll get all of them. And I think that, oh man, like someone was asking me earlier, if you had unlimited budget, what would you do with this show? And the one thing I would do is I would make every Forsaken like a top like A-list person.
Even Balaam?
Yeah, especially I'm just, my like one small thing, considering how scary they made the White Cloaks, I'm very excited to see how scary they make the Forsaken. And I think cold opens are a really great place for them to hang out, because they've already given us a great kind of a way to do, let's check in with them without interrupting the action of what's already going on. See more questions. I don't want to step on your moderator toes. I
don't think I'm even the official moderator. I think it's Jen, so like, you're fine. Go ahead.
Stephanie was just whispering in my ear, and now I have a question about...
No talking during our panel.
I now have a question about what we think we're going to see with other variants of Shadowspawn, like Greymen and Drakkar and whatever else, and when we might see those, etc.
So the question is about other Shadowspawn. We haven't yet seen a lot of the options that are out there. Even though, for example, Drakkar were right in the first book. We could have seen them from the get-go. I do think that there's a scene, I think it's in book 4, with all them showing up in a Aiel encampment or whatever. Yeah, okay, I'm not making that up. That would be so cool. But you could do it with Shadowspawn, other, Trollocs and Merge also. I don't know. Does anybody else have any strong feelings about the Drakkar? Are they a yay or a nay?
They're a yay for me. I mean, Drakkar in general, maybe not, but I think definitely we will see more different kinds of Shadowspawn. I think much like with when you're introducing a season, you don't want to introduce too much too fast because my mom, who's watching, will not understand what's going on. She won't understand the difference. You gotta kind of spoon feed it a little bit more. So now we're going into what's kind of more the obstacle season. So we could see some more different variations of different scarier and kinds of things. I think that there's definitely room for more Shadowspawn for sure.
Especially with a bigger budget. Always
Yeah,
the bigger budget.
a bigger budget, and leveling up and all of that. Leveling up, there needs to be more bigger, better, scarier things.
Sure.
So definitely.
Well, and there's I believe it's also book 4 that has a Dark Hound scene in it where we find out, about their venom and all that stuff. So maybe it's the same scene. Honestly, it's all blurring together at the end of JordanCon this week. So yeah, I think that's a good question, and I think they might show up. Maybe in season 3. Sure. Back there. Yeah.
With just how much is going on in the Two Rivers, what role do you think the Tinkers and Aram will have in season 3?
That's a great question. We haven't talked about the Tinkers yet, and the question is Aram going to show up? Are the Tinkers going to show up? What's their stuff going to be like? Gus, do you have any thoughts about that?
I think they have to be important. I mean, I think not only because they cast Maria Doyle Kennedy as Isla, and because Aram has gotten so much screen time, which would not have given him all that screen time if he wasn't going to be important. I think they have to be big, and I think they have to play in significantly to Perrin's journey. I think we have Perrin returning to, feel how you want to feel about Layla, returning to the place where he committed the violence that he struggles with most. And you have him on one side being accosted by White Cloaks, who maybe he got the axe from based on the season 2 trailer, and on the other side he has the Tinkers, who gave him one of the most beautiful cathartic moments of his journey in season 1. I think that they absolutely have to be there, if only for him, to continue to struggle with this identity crisis.
They're going to be more than tinkering pots and whatever else.
Yeah. Honestly, I just thought of this, and now I just want to speculate because it's fun. If we don't get another situation where Perrin is losing family members, for example, a good stand-in for that could be some Tinkers, right? Because he formed such a bond with them in season 1, and Tinkers are going to be around, and so, the White Cloaks or Bain, or the combination of White Cloaks and Bain, might end up, performing somewhat of a massacre, or whatever, killing some Tinkers, and then Perrin could feel really bad about that.
There's actually a line in the first season where it says, they'll never hurt, the White Cloaks wouldn't hurt the Tinkers, or something.
I also
Until Dain Bornhald.
There's an echo in what Rand sees as he goes through the columns and what happens to Aram, right? And you get to see viscerally why that's a really bad thing, right? And you get to see what the reaction would be in a way with characters that you know. And I agree with us 100%. They're so important to Perrin, and the way I think about these books are they're these main characters, and not everybody's important. I understand that they literally go out of the way to tell you everyone is, but everyone's important, but everyone is important in how they help the main characters complete and go through their journey and things of that nature. And Perrin's whole journey in the first season of the show is bracketed by the Tinkers, right? And like the conflict that he has at the end, which I think, is the fact that you can tell he wants to travel that path, but he doesn't know how, and he doesn't know if he can, right? I don't know how you abandon it.
No, and I feel like the Aram Dain pairing of it all, I mean, that's the best thing to do to a protagonist, is like push him in between two different opposing poles. And I really, really want Perrin and Arb's relationship to be explored in the show. I think there's a lot to do with Aram, and I think it's really exciting to potentially see the pairing in between them, and then what kind of starts to happen to Aram as the world corrupts him, as he's forced to be corrupted by the world, or in his mind, I guess. So I think that's really interesting, and just a potential warning of what could happen to anybody in this world. And Dain, same thing. He has his thoughts and ideas, and then slowly kind of things move. Like his ideals do not necessarily measure up to what the world actually is, and I think that's a really interesting line for Perrin to be between.
I just kind of it kind of dawned on me. It's interesting how certain characters have, for example, Rand. He primarily has lady sidekicks. Let's put it that way. It's reductive, but he's got women surrounding him, right? And Perrin is kind of the opposite, because when you mentioned Aram, he's kind of Perrin's little sidekick, and Perrin's also got Gaul, and Perrin's got Elias, and he's got so many, and Loyal, he's got all these men circling him, and so now that I'm thinking about it, I hope we still get Gaul for sure, but that's kind of Perrin just gets all the fun little companions,
He does get the fun little companions, all with very different viewpoints about life, which is fun because he's in the middle of all of those, trying to figure out which one's the right one.
Yeah.
During this sausage fest that we've got going on.
I know. Good for him. Okay, we have a few minutes left, so let's round it out with questions. Let's go to the very back, the blonde who saved Sulin earlier.
So in book 4, Maureen is obviously with Rand and that crew going to the Waste with Meridian, but she starts to kind of take on a little bit more of a secondary character type role. So obviously Parliament, that's not acceptable. So what do you do to kind of center her more throughout that plot?
I mean, she's got her going into Ruidian scenario, which would be cool. That could be really cool, but that's one moment. So honestly, I'm not sure. That's gonna be an invented plot.
I've got to prepare Rand before I'm gonna die of it all. I feel like is a good place to mine for potential plot lines. Just because there is an emotional conflict between those two for a big bulk of their journey together. But I think I think there is a world in which driving those stakes and pulling out the complexity of that and showing us her perspective in addition to Rand's perspective, so we see why they can't necessarily align, but we get inside both of their heads. I think there's that's. And whatever the heck she's doing in those wagons the whole time. She's in the wagons all the time. And what is she doing?
I think another part of the reason why... Sorry, did I cut you off?
No, yeah, of course.
I did cut you off?
No.
Did I cut you off? Yeah, of course.
No. I think that's, can I go? Of course.
I think another part of the reason why Waring does feel like a very secondary character in much of Book 4 is because we get so little of her perspective in the books at all. I don't think we get any in Book 4. And I think there is, I'm not suggesting that they will do this, but I think there is a way to frame much of the action in the Waste with her eyes.
Oh.
Well, Ellie just did the thing. Which
Not
is
to mention the whole land conflict, where she's like, I'm basically giving you away like a sweater, not an estate sale. I feel like there could be some conflict in that relationship too, which will be fun and interesting for all of us, I'm sure.
I had a question for you guys. That's what I was gonna. Do they move that and make that the end of Rain?
The book 5 thing?
Book 5
we talked about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that happens in the middle of book 5, right?
Yeah.
You know, is Rosamund gonna come back for like 3 episodes or whatever? Or do you go, there's your like all is lost end. How are they gonna recover from this?
I have another question before you guys answer. Are they gonna do that in the show? And and take Rosamund off the show?
Well, I mean, you don't just put Rosamund Pike on ice.
Right.
Like, if we're gonna figure out ways. I say we, like I work on the show. I do not. Okay, but I mean, they're not gonna put Rosamund Pike on ice. I don't think for very long. I definitely think you have to give Moraine that moment. Well, I'm saying on ice. Well, my theory is she comes back. I don't think she's dead, but like that's a theory. But I think that there is a room for utilizing things like Talyrin Riad and stuff like that to utilize her in different ways. But dreams and all that stuff that we have, and of course cold opens that flashback to things that maybe we don't know about. There's lots of ways to include her in things, but I definitely think that moment will happen. I'm thinking the season after the one we're talking about, so 4. And I think it's got to be either.
We've discussed
I'll
it
talk about it later.
midpoint.
We discussed it as a midpoint for the season because the rest of the season is kind of the downfall from that. And I think there's a potential that the Tower coup and the ramifications of the Tower coup plays into what happens, because Min mentions to Moraine, that woman will be your downfall. And I think there's a world in which Moraine is tempted to maybe abandon Rand to go to Swan. And that kind of is the catalyst for what ends up happening.
Okay, on that note, we are at time. And I think it's a perfect time to end because we're talking about season 4, and that's how we're going to handle it. So thank you all for being here. Don't miss the closing ceremony.